Hello guys, it is me, Ebony. I know you probably didn't expect to see a video from me today. I haven't made a video for about 2 years, and so much has happened in those 2 years, so much that I've tried to come on YouTube and explain on several different occasions, and I couldn't get through the video. I couldn't finish recording it. It was too emotional. I was in tears. I couldn't make it to the end of the video. So every time I told myself, just give yourself some time, Ebony. Wait a few months, record a video, come back to YouTube. Each time I was still super emotional. I couldn't get through the video. So hopefully today I can get through this video. I feel like I'm in a better place mentally than I was even 4, 6, 8 months ago. But anyway, in March of 2019, so I'm going to start from the beginning. I'm going to take you through everything that has happened this past 2 years. I'm going to try to sum it up, but I'll just let you know I'm going to have to leave out so much. Otherwise, the video would be so long. So in March of 2019, I was burned in a fire that started in my home. I was burned on 20% of my body. So I was burned on my face, my arms, my hands, my torso, my body, and my legs and my feet. So the whole front of my body has burns on it. 3rd degree burns, 2nd degree and 3rd degree burns, but mainly 3rd degree burns. And so after the accident, I was admitted into the hospital where they took skin from my back. So all of my back, they took the skin from my back, the back of my thighs, one of my calves, and the side of my stomach. They took that skin and then they grafted that skin on top of the burn areas. So not only do I have burns on the front side of my body, but I have scars all down the back of my body, my back, my legs, you know. So pretty much I'm scarred everywhere. It's been a very, very traumatic experience. So I'll go back to when I was in the hospital. So they would do the skin grafts. At one point, they had to put me in a medically induced coma. Everything that was going on, it was best for me to be put in that sedative state. First of all, the experience was extremely, extremely painful. And then, you know, after a while, after getting to the hospital, after a day or two, they had to immediately start the surgery process in order to save my life, because burns, they can kill you, you know. They can kill you. Your skin is your biggest organ. So if so much of your skin is burned, it can definitely be deadly if they don't start the process of grafting skin from parts that are not burned to the parts that are. So I was put in a medically induced coma. I was given a trach. So I had a hole in my neck right here where they attached a breathing machine because I couldn't breathe on my own. Attached the breathing machine and attached me to a machine called a ventilator that breathed for me. I went through the process of surgeries after a few weeks of being in that medically induced coma. And I will just tell you this, and I'll save the details for another day. But when I was in that medically induced coma, I was fully aware that I was in some type of state where I couldn't get out of. I was having nightmares, back-to-back recurring nightmares. And I could not get out of that sleep state. I knew I was in a sleep state, but I just didn't know why I couldn't wake up. And I was having nightmares back to back to back, which I later found out was the medication. Sorry if I'm not looking at the camera. It snowed today, and I'm looking out this window, and it's just so beautiful outside. And it's kind of calming me down to help me get through this video. So I'll try to look at the camera. But anyway, the medication that they gave me for pain when I was in that medically induced coma, it was giving me nightmares, and I was fully aware that I was in a sedative state. I just didn't know how to get out of it. And so when I finally awoke from being in that state, when I finally came out of the medically induced coma, I had the trach in my neck, so I couldn't talk. I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't remember what had happened to me. And I felt like the nurses and the doctors and the people in the hospital were all trying to kill me. It was just the weirdest thing. And it was because of the nightmares that I had been having and the fact that I couldn't really remember what was going on. So to wake up and not be able to talk and to not be able to communicate how afraid you are and what you've been experiencing for the past few weeks, and to think that everyone around you is trying to hurt you, It was so traumatic. It was so traumatic. When I came out of that medically induced coma, I did recognize my husband, and I wanted him to get me out of the hospital because I really felt like people were trying to hurt me because of the nightmares that I was having. So when I tried to speak and I realized I couldn't speak, I thought, okay, I could write. Meanwhile, my hands were burned. So you can see the burns. My hands were burned and they were wrapped. So I asked my husband to get me a pencil and a paper so that I could write to him, you know, the things that were going on in my head, that I was really afraid, and I needed him to get me out of the hospital. I went to write and I could not form the letters. I could not write. I could not communicate. And I was so defeated. I was so defeated. I just felt so afraid. I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't communicate. I couldn't write. I was stuck in my mind. And it was like that for a little while until they actually took the trach out of my neck and I was able to regain my voice, which I do have scar tissue on my vocal cords because of the trach. So, my voice is not the same. And I don't know if it will ever be exactly what it used to be, but if you can hear it, it's kind of raspy. And that's because of the scar tissue that is on my vocal cords because of that trach that I had. Before they took the trach out, I remember they used to have to take me to shower every day. The nurses would have to take me to shower every day. And so they had to unwrap all my body that had all of these bandages on them. They had to unwrap my body and scrub me down in order to prevent infection, in order to prevent, you know, any bacteria or anything from getting inside the burns. You know, in order for me to heal properly, they had to bathe me daily, unwrap me, scrub my body, put on my ointments and stuff, and rewrap me. When I tell you that this was the most painful thing that I have ever experienced in my life, it was the most painful thing that I had ever experienced. There is nothing that can compare. I've had 5 children. I've given birth to 5 children. Childbirth is nothing, in my opinion, compared, or the pain that I experienced from childbirth and contractions and C-sections is nothing compared to what I felt when I had to go to that shower room and get bathed every day. And because I had a trach and I couldn't speak, I couldn't scream, I couldn't cry, I couldn't voice exactly how painful it was. I could only kind of gesture, and a lot of times they would understand that I was in pain, but I could never really say I'm in pain because I had that trach in. And it was just so devastating. It was so devastating. It was so painful. I developed anxiety. I developed PTSD. I developed depression, and I'm about to cry. But I'm not going to cry because I'm strong and I'm past this. But I developed anxiety being in the hospital, going through pain and not being able to communicate that you're in pain. Feeling helpless. Like at one point I couldn't even use the restroom on my own. I would have to call someone when I needed to use the restroom. I couldn't even wipe myself because my arms were burned and I couldn't reach back there because the burned skin was contracting and was stiffening up. I couldn't dress myself. I remember the first time my physical therapist brought me an outfit, a t-shirt and a pair of shorts. And she said, take your time and try to dress yourself. And I struggled for like 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes because I didn't want to ask for help. And I could not get that darn shirt on, and I could not get those shorts on, and they were just like basketball shorts, and I couldn't get it on. And I felt so horrible about myself because at that time I was a 35-year-old woman. I wasn't a child, and I couldn't even dress myself. And I tried so hard because I wanted to be self-sufficient. I've always been a self-sufficient and independent person. And I couldn't do it that first day, and I had to call the nurses to help me, and I was crying because I felt so bad about myself. And then, you know, after a while, it got to a point where I could, you know, I had to learn how to walk. So at first the first time I took 9 steps, and I remember the nurses being so happy about that. And then I took like 20 something steps. And then they were like, tomorrow you're going to walk to the front desk of the ICU. And then you're going to walk around the desk, you know, around to the rooms, and then back to your room, you know, on the hospital floor. So, after I kind of learned how to walk, I told myself I wasn't going to ask anybody for help anymore using the restroom, that I was just going to get up and go when I needed to go. So when I had that trach in my neck, I couldn't breathe. It was so hard to breathe because I was breathing out of my neck and I wasn't breathing out of my nose. And I always felt like I couldn't get enough air. But I was determined. So I would get up and I would go to the bathroom. Well, I would try to go to the bathroom. It would take me forever just to get from the bed to the bathroom. And by the time I would get to the bathroom, I would be huffing and puffing. And I felt like I was suffocating. I felt like I could not get enough air to do what I needed to do. And I would get inside of the bathroom and I would just start hyperventilating. And I would just have a panic attack right there in the bathroom. Sometimes I could use it. Sometimes I couldn't. Sometimes I would call the nurse to help me. When I say sometimes I could use it and sometimes I couldn't, sometimes I would be in such a panic attack that I would call a nurse and say, please, can you come help me? And then sometimes I would just calm myself down and I would be able to use it. But I remember distinctly at least 4 or 5 times trying to go to the bathroom, trying to push myself, get into the bathroom, having a panic attack, calling a nurse to help me. The nurse would help me, use the restroom, wipe me, put me back in the bed. It was so humbling. It was so humbling. And not that, you know, I'm a prideful person, but I just was always such an independent person. One day, I wanted to use the restroom again. It was nighttime. And I said, I'm going to get up and use the restroom. I had to use the restroom really, really bad. Really bad. And I was having trouble getting up that day. So I was looking for the pager to page my nurse. And I couldn't find the pager. So I said, okay, I'm just going to try. I don't know why I couldn't get up that day. I must have had some type of surgery or procedure or something. I couldn't get up. So I got to the edge of the bed and I knew I was about to urinate on myself because I wasn't going to be able to make it. So I thought to myself, is it better to urinate in my bed and then the nurse have to come in, change my sheets, clean me up, or just to stand up, urinate on the floor, and then my bed would still be clean. I would just have to wipe myself up and get back in the bed. So I said, you know what, Ebony, just urinate on the floor because that's going to be better for everybody. So I did that. I still couldn't find the button to page my nurse. So eventually my nurse came in maybe like 10, 15 minutes later to check my vitals. And she made me feel so horrible about myself. She said, why did you get up? Why didn't you call somebody? Look what you did. And meanwhile, in my head, I was trying to pick the lesser of 2 evils, whether I urinate in the bed or whether I urinate on the floor. And I was trying to help her because I didn't want her to have to change all my sheets. And she talked to me that way, you know, and I felt so low. You know, it's one thing that I was burned really badly. It's one thing that I hadn't seen my kids in over a month, and I hadn't talked to them in over a month because I never wanted them to see me in the hospital like that. It was really, really bad. And so, I never wanted my kids to see me like that. So it was bad enough that I was burned. It was bad enough that I was in extreme pain. It was bad enough that I couldn't do a lot of things for myself. I hadn't talked to my kids in over a month. And I've never been away from my kids for an extended period of time like that. I couldn't eat. I was being fed through a tube in my nose. There were so many things that were just wrong. And I just wanted to do something for myself. I just wanted to take back. I just wanted to take control of my life again. And so she said, look what you did. Why didn't you call someone? And then another nurse had come in at the same, like a few minutes later. And then she said she was trying to get up on her by herself and she peed on the floor. Like, she talked to me so ugly that day. And I felt so low. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to stand up for myself. And I'm kind of skipping around parts you know, so at this point, I still had the trach, but I had a cap over it. So a cap over it allowed me to talk a little bit at that point, you know. So when I'm calling the nurse or whatever, I had a cap over my trach, which allowed me to talk. It was like a robotic voice, but I still could talk. So anyway, I stood up for myself that day. I said, you know what? I may be burned. I may be injured. I may be hurt right now, but I'm still a human being, and you will not talk to me like that. I'm not an animal. I'm not a puppy that just, you know, urinated on the floor because they can't get their potty training together. I am a human being, and you will treat me as such. And then she was like, oh, well, I'm sorry. You know, she started stuttering and stumbling over her words, you know, trying to be apologetic. I don't know if she was used to talking to all of her patients like that, or if she was just irritated that day and she didn't want to clean up the mess I made. But, you know, I stood up for myself. And that was just one instance, but I will say that most of the nurses, majority of the nurses, 95% of the nurses and doctors that I experienced while I was in the hospital, and physical therapists and psychologists and all of the people who helped me, they were absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. It was only one or two, you know, that I had bad experiences with, but, you know, I was getting new nurses and doctors all of the time. So, you know, every shift, it would be rare that I would get the same nurse or doctor for an extended period of time, maybe 2 or 3 days, and then somebody new would come in. And so I would see new faces all of the time, and most of them are very, very nice and encouraging and motivating, and they helped me a lot. But then it's always the bad experiences that stick in your brain, and that's what stuck in my brain. Like, that one experience was so horrible and humiliating, and I was like, man, no one should ever be treated like this. So yeah, so my husband would come up to visit me every single day. Every single day he was there. And I don't know how he did it, because he was balancing the children at home. And at that time we had 5 children. We now have 6 children. I'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, my husband would come up to the hospital every day. Friends would come up and visit me. Yeah, so I was doing physical therapy in the hospital. They were trying to get me to be able to use my body the way I used to. They taught me how to walk. They taught me how to feed myself, how to dress myself. They got my strength back up, because it was very weak. My strength was so weak, like I couldn't open a bottle. I couldn't open a soda bottle. I couldn't twist a doorknob. Like, the strength of my hands and my arms and things, it was very, very weak. So a lot of things I couldn't do for myself that they would help me with in physical therapy. One day, the doctor came in and said, you know what? You can go home today. You are in a really good position. You can go home today. And I was terrified, because all of the support that I had at the hospital, the nurses, the doctors, the physical therapists, I didn't have at home. The only person I had at home was my husband. And he had to take on the process of unwrapping my bandages every day, bathing me, putting all the ointments and creams back on the wounds, wrapping me back up. He had to take care of me like the nurses did. 2, 3, 4, 5 nurses around the clock. This one man would have to do that, who had no nursing experience. So they showed him the process of doing everything, but I was terrified. I was terrified. And then also I was terrified about pain management, because they were managing my pain via my IV, medication in my IV, very strong medications. And at home I will only have like pills. And some of the pills are known to be very, very addictive. And I didn't want to take them, like Percocet and, what else did they give me? There's another one that people are becoming addicted to. I can't think of it. If I think of it when I edit this video, I'll put it on the screen. But very strong painkillers, and I didn't want to take them because I didn't want to become addicted. So I was afraid of pain management at home. But I got home. My husband took excellent care of me. When I got home, in the hospital, I never saw any mirrors, so I didn't know what I looked like. I just knew what I looked like when they unwrapped my wounds, but I didn't know what I looked like from head to toe, and I didn't know what my face looked like. And I have makeup on, so my face is looking kind of good today. But I have scars all over my face. Right here, I have a scar right here from the tube that was tied in my mouth. At one point, I have all of these are burns. All of this is burns. But I didn't know what I looked like. So when I got home, I remember the first time I went to take a bath, my husband, he hid the full-length mirror that I kept in my bathroom. He hid it in the closet because he knew I wasn't ready to see myself. And I did see myself in the mirror, you know, glimpses of myself in the mirror, my face. And that was depressing. It was depressing. So the first time he bathed me, he hid the mirror in the closet, and we went through the whole process. Wrapping everything, washing me, rewrapping everything. It took 2 hours. No joke, not exaggerating. It literally took 2 hours, because the process of doing these bandages and you know, putting the ointments on, and you know, cutting away the dead skin that's falling off, and all of that is a very tedious process. And this had to be done every day until I could shower on my own. And he would do it every day, and it was a 2-hour process, and it was very, very tedious. Meanwhile, the whole time my mental state is just declining. I'm looking at myself. I'm realizing that I will never again look the way I once looked. That I will always have very visible scars on my body. That people will recognize before they even get to know me. They will see my scars. That I will always have this reminder. And at that point in time, I've since changed my mindset. But at that point in time, I became extremely depressed. And I sank into a really, really deep depression. To the point where, and I can say this, you know, kind of lighthearted, you know, with a lighthearted attitude right now, because I'm not in that space anymore. But at the time, I was so depressed that I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be here. And people would remind me, oh, what about your kids? And at that time, I was so sad and so depressed that I couldn't think of anything or anyone outside of my current situation. And I didn't want to be here. And sometimes I would stay in the bed for 3 and 4 days at a time. You know, I'm fast forwarding it a bit. So this is, once I started being able to shower myself and my wounds were healing a bit, I still had to wear these compression garments. You know, I still had a lot of painful reminders. You know, I was in pain every day. I was reminded every day of this accident for months. And something that was worse than the pain was the itching. I would itch and I would itch. And the itching would be uncontrollable. And I would itch uncontrollably all day long, to the point where I would just go crazy. Like sometimes I would just fall out on the floor and just roll there and scream. Like, I'm not making this stuff up. I would literally just fall out and be screaming on the floor. And my kids would be like, Dad, Mom's on the floor again. Like, the itching and the pain combined was just, it would drive me nuts. And the itching was because as my skin would heal and the nerve endings would come back in, they were like just firing all kinds of weird signals to my brain. And the main signal that I would get would be itching. You know, burned skin, as it heals, it itches. Those nerve endings, as they start to grow back, they itch. If you ever had a wound, like it, you know, even a normal wound with a scab, as it heals, sometimes it'll itch. The itching was all over my body, and it was so intense. And no amount of scratching, which I really couldn't scratch because I would break open the wounds or the skin grafts, but no amount of scratching would get rid of the itching. They gave me medication in the hospital. No amount of medication would stop the itching. I was miserable and I was depressed. And at this point, like I said, when I started to be able to shower on my own sometimes, and I would be able to get up and move around on my own really well. Sometimes I wouldn't get out of the bed for 3 and 4 days. I would get out of bed to use the restroom. I would tell my kids to bring me food in the bed, and I would not get out of bed. And my pillows and my sheets in my bed became like a coffin that I just wanted to bury myself in to get away from reality. And so, I've come so far, and I'm so proud of myself, because this was the most difficult thing. And I look at some of my burn survivor friends, I had 20% burns, and it was the most difficult experience of my life. But some of my burn survivor friends have had 30, 40, 50, 70, 80% burns, and I don't know how they made it through. And I just take my hat off to them. I salute them. I am rooting for them. I support them. I'm so proud of them because I don't know how they did it, because it almost took me out. And I feel like I'm a strong woman, you know. But, so yeah, I was depressed. I was depressed for months. I was depressed at my appearance. My face had scabs all over it for months. It would not heal. They didn't graft my face because they felt like my face would kind of heal on its own without the skin graft. So they didn't graft my face, and my face was burned and scabbed and crusty and peeling and bloody for months, and it hurt so bad. I couldn't even wash my face in the shower normally, like put water on it and wash it. It hurt so bad. I couldn't sleep. Sometimes I would go to sleep. I would lay my head on my pillow, you know, nicely, trying not to put my face directly on the pillow. I would wake up, my face would be stuck to the pillow, and then I would have to literally pull my face off the pillow, and there would be scabs and blood on my pillowcase. I was miserable. I was depressed. I was still having panic attacks. I couldn't cook. I couldn't go in the kitchen and cook because the fire that started, it was a grease fire. It was a fire that just exploded out of grease in the kitchen. And I couldn't go in the kitchen. I couldn't cook for months. I had anxiety just going in the kitchen. I would have panic attacks. I was a mess. I was miserable. But things got better because I kept telling myself, Ebony, you're not going to let this defeat you. You are not going to let anything defeat you. You've been through some crazy stuff in your life, and you've made it to the other side. And you're going to make it to the other side. And you are going to be even better than you were before. So I kept trying to motivate myself. Sometimes I couldn't convince myself, you know, but other days, I think just motivating myself is what pushed me just a little bit further. Just a little bit further. To where I needed to be, to get back into that positive mindset. I had to go to physical therapy like 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. My body, the burn skin on my body was contracting. That means it was tightening up, not allowing me to do simple things like bend my arm. I couldn't bend my arm all the way because the skin had contracted right here by my elbow. I couldn't open my mouth. I couldn't eat a burger because this burn skin right here had contracted. I couldn't even open my mouth all of the way. So there were things I couldn't do because of the burnt skin contracting. And I would go to physical therapy and they would help me with that. So I went Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for almost a year. And then I had to go to behavioral health. So I went to see a psychiatrist because, like I said, I was extremely depressed. I was dealing with anxiety and PTSD. So I was going to a psychiatrist one day out of the week, and then they wanted me to go to speech therapy another day out of the week because, like I told you in the part 1, my vocal cords are damaged because of the trach that I had, and at that time my voice was really, really raspy. I couldn't scream, you know, I couldn't project air out of my vocal cords to scream, and they were like, you're gonna have to go to speech therapy. I just couldn't fit it in. You know, I had gone back to work at that point, so I was working full-time. I had my 5 children, and then I was going to physical therapy 3 days a week. I was going to see my mental health therapist, my psychiatrist, 1 day a week, and then they wanted me to fit in speech therapy. I just couldn't do it all. So I didn't go to speech therapy. I still wish I would have, and I may still decide to go to do it later because I really would like the fullness and the richness of my voice back, especially if I'm going to be making videos. Like, I sound really raspy, and I don't like it. But anyway, so yeah, so I was depressed, but I was slowly crawling out of the depression. I was doing everything I can to crawl out of the depression. One thing that helped me a lot, well, 2 things. One thing that helped me a lot was writing. So I got back into writing poetry because it was such a release for me to write poetry. Just write about random things. It just put me in a really healthy mental space because I love writing and I loved writing poetry. And so I ended up writing a book. I wrote a poetry book in 2019, and I self-published it. And it's on Amazon, and it's called No One Knows Her Name, A Journey Through the Emotions of Womanhood. And that is like my baby. I love that book. I love the poems inside that book. But I love that book the most because it healed me. It healed me. You know, it put me in a better mental state where I could get through what I was going through. I could focus on something. I could pour my energy into something besides being depressed. I could pour my energy into something besides worrying about my appearance and worrying about what I lost in the accident and worrying about what other people thought about me, because this was a new world for me, a new world of visible differences. I have a visible difference. I am burned, you know, all over my body. When it's not wintertime and I'm wearing my short sleeve shirts and I'm wearing my, outfits that expose my legs, and when I don't have makeup on, when I go to the store or the drive-through, I have a visible difference that people will recognize. They will see this before they even know who I am. And that bothered me so much because I've never had to deal with that before. You know, I didn't have any type of visible differences on my body before the accident. So I was used to when I would meet people, people would see me for Ebony. But now people see my scars first, and then they talk to me, and then they get to know me, and then they get to know who Ebony is. And that's if they can get past the scars. Most adults can get past the scars, but I can tell it first, especially, if I don't have face makeup on, their eyes will be drawn to my scars. And it's like I could see them being curious, like curiosity ticking away in their head, but they don't want to say anything. And some people do. Some people will flat out say, hey, what happened? Some people will straight up ask me, but some people won't. But I'll notice their eyes going from scar to scar, and I know that they're wanting to know what happened, but they don't want to ask. So, so social situations, it's like my burns come before me, and then I have to say, hey, there's a person here, behind the burns. And maybe that's just me still dealing with the mental things that come with being a burn survivor. And maybe later I won't feel that way, but the first 2 years I felt that way. So much so to the point where, I got really anxious in new social situations where I knew I would have to be around people who I didn't know. I got really anxious, and sometimes my heart would beat a little bit. And I'm already an introverted person, and then to mix the introverted personality with now having to, have a difference in my appearance, it just wasn't a good combination. But I'm getting better, and I'm getting stronger, and I'm starting not to care what people think, because I'm starting to understand that my scars are a representation of what I went through and how I made it to the other side, and how I still can be wherever I want to be in life, just the way I am. That I can be strong, I can be powerful, I can be beautiful, I can be intelligent, I can accomplish anything just the way I am. And that my scars are just a representation of my inner strength. And some people have scars that are not visible, but they're still a representation of the strength of that person and everything that they've gone through. Yeah, so I probably left out so much in this video, but if you have any questions about the burn accident, please just leave them down below, and I'll be happy to answer them in another video. So I'll just compile the questions and answer it in another video. So yeah, so that was my 2019 and into 2020. Beginning of 2020, right before the pandemic, I found out that I was pregnant. I did not want to be pregnant. I was not trying to get pregnant. I didn't even know that my reproductive system was still working. Because of the burn accident, I wasn't having menstrual cycles. It just threw my body out of whack. So many things happened. Like, I'll just go back, I left this part out. Like, when I was in the hospital, I had pneumonia because of the burn injury, and being in the hospital, I caught pneumonia. I had to start taking insulin because they told me that My blood sugars were out of whack. Another side effect of the burn accident. So I was taking insulin injections, just like a diabetic, and I was never diabetic before, and I'm not diabetic now, but during that point in time I became diabetic. I had to wear these goggles and put drops in my eyes because my eyes were burned. Luckily, I got my full eyesight. At this point in time, I have my full eyesight. There was no permanent damage because of the burns to my eyes or whatever happened to my eyes. Yeah, so there were just so many side effects that happened because of the burn accident. But basically, I got pregnant in February of 2020, and that was another very, very hard thing for me to go through, because after being depressed for at least 6 to 9 months before that point, I was not mentally in a space where I felt like I could carry a pregnancy and give birth. I really still was struggling with my mental health, and it overwhelmed me to know that I was pregnant. And then I didn't even know if my body could carry the pregnancy because I had burns and skin grafts and things on my stomach. So, and I didn't know how those things would stretch with the pregnancy. I didn't know anything. I just know I was scared. And that's another video itself. But anyway, I ended up having a beautiful daughter in November of 2020. So she's 3 months now. And it was one of the best things that happened to me in the past 2 years. No, definitely the best thing that happened to me in the past 2 years. One of the best things that has happened to me in my life. And I think it really helped pull me out of that depression, even though at first it made me more depressed to know that I was pregnant, because I just didn't think I could do it. I just didn't think I could go through 9 months, you know, in the state that I was in. But looking back on it, it pulled me out of my depression because it just gave me something beautiful to focus on besides everything else that I was dealing with at the time, that I was continuing to deal with. So writing and having a baby were definitely two of the things that helped me a lot. I'm not advising anyone to have a baby if you're going through something traumatic, but that's what helped me. And then also connecting with all of the beautiful people in the burn survivor community. There's so many people that I've met. Beautiful, beautiful, amazing, resilient, strong, intelligent people that I looked to them for strength and encouragement, and they helped me to kind of pull myself up to the place where I am now and not stay in such a low and depressed and sad place. But they actually just pulled me up to this beautiful place that I am now. I'm so happy right now, and I have so many good things going on right now. So that's it. That's where I have been the last 2 years. So I'm going to be coming back with videos. I want to do videos. I love YouTube. I want to share with you guys. So I hope you will stick around my channel. I hope you don't unsubscribe, because my content is going to change. You know, I used to do a lot of beauty content, a lot of hairstyling content, but I've kind of shifted away from that. I still can do it, you know. I definitely still can do it. And now that I think about it, I might still do it, but I kind of felt, you know, since I was dealing with my scars and everything, I just didn't want to focus on those things. But I think I can show people how you can be beautiful with scars, how you can be your best and look your best with scars, and how scars are not a defining factor on what you choose to do or how you feel about yourself. So I may go that route, but I definitely know I want to do more lifestyle content outside of beauty and hair, that I want to do a lot of content that kind of will help you, you know, build yourself up, develop yourself, you know, get past difficult times, move forward with your goals and your dreams for yourself, regardless of the things that you have going on in your life that you may feel are hindering you or are keeping you from, you know, being your best self. Because no matter what you're going through, no matter how difficult it is, it will get better, and you can do whatever you put your mind to, no matter your circumstances. So I'm going to end the video here. Leave comments down below if you have any questions, because I skipped over a whole lot, and I will make another video and I will answer your questions. follow me on Instagram. I am Ebony Deborah on Instagram. I'll put it on the screen. I'm Ebony Deborah on Twitter. I'm Ebony Deborah on any social media site that you try to locate me on. I am Ebony Deborah, but definitely follow me on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram, and I have been the past 2 years. But anyway, I hope you have a blessed day, week. Whenever you're watching this, have an amazing 2021, and I'll be back again soon. Bye, guys.